What is the difference between steaming and soaking hay? Lots of hay questions or forage questions today. What is the benefit for both? So again, we had another YouTube community comment. So Cheyenne Denning said, I soak my 22-year-old gelding's hay. It seems like it helps with his allergies, but I'm not sure. And she also wanted us to point out that she was the first one to comment. So congratulations. I know that's a big thing for our YouTube community watchers to be the first comment, so congratulations on that.
Okay. So when you feed forage, you have a couple of choices. You can feed it dry, just as it comes, right? You can dampen it. Some people just take the flakes and spritz it with the hose, and that just to cut down on the dust. The next would be to soak it, and then the next would be to actually steam it.
Yes.
Yeah, and the best way to steam, really the only way now, there is commercial steamers, like Haygain steamer.
Correct.
Because you can make your own steamer, but it does, yeah,
that sounds dicey.
Yeah, and it's not only potentially dangerous, water and electricity, but it doesn't. If you don't steam the bale from the inside out, you're not as effective, and you might also be creating a dangerous situation with microorganisms. So there's lots of research about the Haygain steamer. If you go on their website, I mean, just pages and pages of published, peer-reviewed scientific research. And what it says is that, and I better read it so I get it right, that the Haygain steamer, it takes about an hour. I don't know if have you smelled it?
I have. So
Okay.
they actually have been in a lot of our booths
Like
at trade
Equine
shows
Affairs
and things like
and stuff,
that.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
always smells very good.
It does. Significantly reduces airborne respirable particles. That's your dust and allergens. And microbial contamination. So bacteria, yeast, and mold. That is the fungi. So I think the original asker said, why would you pick one over the other?
Yep.
You pick steaming if you're concerned about respiratory allergens or airway irritation, and you're trying to reduce the contaminants in your horse's breathing zone.
So if your horse has some sort of allergy,
Like equine asthma disease, the inflammatory airway disease, or the recurrent airway obstruction, Heaves, let's just call it Heaves, okay, all right. That's the main use for a steamer. It softens the hay, and it's very, very palatable. When horses are given a choice, they always choose the steamed hay. That's in the research. I just read that.
They've got great taste.
Yeah, yeah. So soaked hay, why would you soak hay then? And there are some commercial units for this, but do we have like a hay net? If you just, there's people who have really good systems of putting hay in hay nets and then putting it in a muck bucket or something. And some people even put the hay net on a pulley, a rope and a pulley, and because it gets heavy when it's waterlogged. And so when they pull it up out of the water, it helps to have sort of some help.
So basically, this little Velcro.
The gator mouth.
Gator mouth, easy to fill.
Yep.
And then basically just close this up, and then you just dunk this in.
The whole thing in the water.
Nice.
Yeah.
And this acts like a little spaghetti strainer when you pull it out.
Yeah, right. Now, and you want to discard the water. Now, one of the pros, there's a list of pros and cons between soaking and steaming. One of the cons is that this takes a lot of water.
Yes.
Like 40, 50, 60 liters of water. I mean, lots and lots of water. The Haygain steamer takes, they say, 4 liters.
Okay, so drastically less.
Yeah, so much less water, and potentially there's environmental contamination with this. But why would you soak? You would soak if you're trying to remove sugars.
Okay.
So the horses that are insulin resistant, maybe have Cushing's disease with some insulin resistance, the horses that are PSSM, that are laminitic and shouldn't have either sugars or fructans. And so if you soak in the rule, the guidelines are 30 minutes hot water and 60 minutes cold water will leach out significant amounts of the water-soluble carbohydrates, fancy term for the sugars and the fructans. Potassium has been shown to come out at about the same rate also. Now, hay is very high in potassium, but if you have an HYPB horse, you could soak and remove potassium.
Oh, there you go.
Right. So soaking would be to remove sugars, and then steaming would be to reduce the allergens, the respirable particles, the contamination.
Microorganisms.
Yep.
So steaming does not get rid of the sugars at the same way.
It gets rid of some of them.
But not the same way
The
as
numbers
soaking.
range, most studies show 2 to 3% only of the sugars are removed with steaming. It's not very much, and probably not enough to move the hay into a safe range for the horse, which you know because you analyze the hay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There are some studies with higher numbers that have shown 12 and 18% removed, but still, when you compare it to 30% that soaking removes, and it's been as high as 55%.
Wow.
Soaking really does the better job. If that's your goal, sugars. Then soaking is the technique you want to use. If your goal is to help your horse breathe better, then steaming is what you want to use. There was one study in the list where they said the best of all worlds is to soak, then steam.
That's like top notch.
That's hardcore.
That's all the way there.
Yeah, but it's it can be very time consuming.
Yeah.
If you do all that.
That's really helpful because I was on our customer care team for a long time at SmartPak, and that is a common misconception between people, like not really sure whether to soak or whether to steam, and what the difference between the two and what their goal is. So I think that's a really helpful and easy way to break it down for people as to what best options are.
There you go.
So hopefully that helped you out.